The final video was something I really considered the final in the chronology of my student's journey, and no doubt there would be many, could probably tell twice as many stories as the ones I've told. But that it's at least given a sense of the journey and some of the miraculous things that have happened along the way. In doing so, it's confirmed for me the incredible unusualness of this journey, and I hope that by sharing it, I say this now, I kind of wish I'd said it at the beginning, but I was once told by Joshua when I share, he asked me to be a Course in Miracles teacher at one point, and he said, beloved friend, when you share, he says, you cannot be of any help by sharing what you know about the book, which is unusual because you wouldn't say that to a physics professor, for example. He says you can only be of help by sharing your own experiences and your own doubts and your own discoveries. So I've often told, I talk and I say I a lot and me because I was told to teach that way. But I hope people can transfer it to being, about them, because this is supposed to be about all of us. It's supposed to be about you as much as it is about me, hopefully. So going through all of these, I kind of was feeling complete, and this is something I've wanted to get down my whole life. So I was feeling really grateful about having completed it, even celebratory a little bit. But then there was one lingering story that kept knocking on my door, in a sense. And it's an unresolved mystery. And I really don't know what the answer is. There are definitely clues that have been put there by Joshua, including one stark one. So I'll just go into it. You may recall, if you've listened to these tapes, that I told a story about meeting someone at the Newport Tower when I first went to the Newport Tower at the winter solstice. And the tower was open, and I went in and I shook hands with this guy, and he had mentioned that his lineage had destroyed Solomon's temple, and I felt I was kind of being asked to make peace with this guy. And he's an unusual guy socially. So as we were leaving, someone said, you're very kind to be nice to him. And so anyhow, he's a very memorable guy because he has an unusual white hat with a big medallion on and a big kind of white, not robes, but kind of that type of a thing. And so I had an unusual meeting with him the first time. It was significant. I felt that something unusual was happening. And I felt it was important to have this sense of kind of two lineages sort of interacting and forgiving and reaching out in peace. I was representing one, he was representing the other. But what happened then next was very strange. I was in the town that I live in, which is 25-minute drive from where the Newport Tower is. And I was coming out of a store, Stop and Shop, or going in, I don't remember which. But I looked over, and it was kind of this flat cement area. They have quite a wide sidewalk, maybe 30 feet, maybe something like that, in front of one part of the Stop and Shop. And the whole place was empty. It was just this big, flat, concrete area, almost looking like a landing strip. It had that big, spacious feeling to it. And there was no one in it and nothing in it except for him. The same guy, again, the next day. And I thought it was weird that he just kind of was like standing there in the middle of this otherwise empty space. And I thought, that's so strange. Not only that, but that I'm seeing him the next day. And he didn't live, I spoke with him, we had a chat. I didn't live with him. I thought, here's a chance for the universe to give me a chance to really cement this peace deal. And I have all these stories about, having been so-and-so and all that. And I really feel like I'm part of a certain lineage that was making peace with his. So I thought, Holy Spirit's giving me a chance to really connect with this guy again and to really lock down the peace deal. Yeah. And I felt like it was even better the second day. Forgiveness, peace, understanding. That's what builds the new world. Amongst who used to be enemies, the Course says the holiest place in the world is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. So I'm very conscious of that idea and acting in that way when I can. But there was something about him just standing in the middle of this big empty space which was unusual to me. It just stuck in my head. So a while later, and I'm talking several years later, not a long time later. I take that back. It may not have been several years later. It might have been, 9 months later, something like that. I'm having car troubles. And I'm having car troubles for a period of time, and They keep trying to fix the car and they can't fix it, and it's just, and I'm throwing money at it because I love the car. But I don't have a car for a while, and I'm type of guy who likes to get around a lot. I don't like staying in one place. So it really kind of eats at me when I can't get around. So finally, I think, well, to heck with this. I'm gonna take the bus up to Providence, which is the main city in Rhode Island, and I've never taken this bus before. So I take the bus up. I go around, do some things in Providence, and I'm coming back. And I go into the train station because I'm not sure where the bus stop is going back home. And so I ask this cop, and normally the cop says, yeah, it's that way or whatever, I think. The cop says, here, let me take you out. I'll show you where it is. I'm like, so he's personally escorting me, which is a little strange. And not that unusual, but a little bit. And we walk outside, and he talks over my shoulder to somebody and says, hey, do you know where this such and such bus is? And I look over, and it's this big open cement space. No one else around, nothing else in it. It's out in front of one of these modern kind of big cement places in the city where, like a train station where, like, there's nobody there. It's just this big space. And standing right in the middle of it, wearing the same thing he was at the tower, and when I saw him at the Stop and Shop, was this guy again. I'm going, whoa, that is really weird. What's up with that? And at the same time, those of you who heard my later stories know that there was this huge synchronicity around the Newport Tower and the figure of King Arthur. And that led all the way into England. And where we went in England with the huge healing around Judas, was it something that was about Arthur? I'm like, why is it about Arthur? What does Arthur have to do with all this? And so, anyhow, I had this second meeting with him. So not only does he know where the bus stop is, but he's going on the same bus that I am, and I'm the only other person on the bus with him. And we have about a 45-minute conversation about all kinds of things. So, okay, that was interesting. So a little bit later in the week, and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? And I talked to some friends who had met this guy along with me. And they jokingly say, oh, he's a time traveler. And I don't know why they're saying that. Oh, one other noteworthy thing was that this bus stop where he directed myself and the policeman to, or myself, I guess, because the cop went back in the train station, the bus stop was parked right in front of a huge apartment building called Avalon Apartment Buildings. Now, Avalon, again, is the Arthur connection. I'm like, Avalon Apartment Buildings? That's another unusual thing, that it's Avalon, where we meet and where this bus is. So I'm just talking about this event with a couple friends and how it's been all three meetings with this guy has been very unusual. And the last two looked exactly like there was nobody else there, and he was just kind of standing in the middle of this big empty space. And one of them goes jokingly, oh, haha, he's a time traveler. And I go, yeah, haha. And then I say that to another friend. I say, oh, yeah, you know, so-and-so has said he thinks he's a time traveler. He's joking. And they go completely deadpan, well, it would make perfect sense with this guy. He doesn't even pretend he's from this time. And it's true. He's talking all the time about stuff that happened in the 1600s, and he's dressed this way, and he's got very unusual social mannerisms, and just he's like a guy out of time. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying, you know, they thought, oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I'm like, wow, this is not someone who's inclined to this type of thing particularly who was saying this. So I get on the bus again, because my car's still not fixed. This is maybe 2 or 3 days later, after the trip up where I saw him at the train station and saw the Avalon Apartment Buildings. So I get on the bus, and the third stop on the bus, he gets on the bus. I just see him standing there waiting at the spot. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So he gets on the bus, comes back and sits with me, and we have another long talk, because I want to get to the bottom of this. And he says, we go on and on and on. He's hard to understand because he talks about all kinds of things about how the king of Prussia in 1346 had a coup, and that's affecting everything that's happening in the world. Now, that type of thing, I have no idea what he's talking about half the time. But we do have interest in the same things as well some of the time, including Camelot and things like that. So I'm fascinated by the fact that this guy keeps showing up out of nowhere. And so he says to me, never mind the fact that he began the entire experience at the tower. So at one point in the conversation, I'm kind of pressing to see if I can find out the key information that I haven't gotten yet. And at one point he says, oh, well, yeah, but none of this is the most important thing. And I say, well, what's the most important thing? He said, oh, the most important thing is that it was the retirement for a professor at Harvard University. And it was in 2007 or something like that. He said, I was at the retirement of a professor at Harvard University in 2007, and I met a time traveler. And I'm like, uh-huh. Like, we hadn't discussed time travel, and my friend just kind of made this up as a joke, and yet now he's saying he met a time traveler. And I'm like, normally I wouldn't even talk about this. But I'm like, that's just very strange. And he said, yeah, he altered the timeline, and what was supposed to be happening isn't happening, and all kinds of it's trying to be connected. And I said, are you working with him? He said, yeah, I've been working with him. And I suggested to him at one point, have you ever thought of the idea that maybe you're out of time? You're supposed to be somewhere else. And he looks and pauses and look at me, and this is a guy who's got a lot of social issues, yeah, a good heart. And he looks at me and goes, well, that would make perfect sense. So this Arthur piece runs through this. Avalon, the tower, the John Dee, who we believe had the tower built at the time of Queen Elizabeth I. He was a counselor to Queen Elizabeth I. He sent ships over. There's a lot of indication he probably had the Newport Tower built. He didn't do it himself, but he had it built. He was in England still. But he thought that King Arthur was his, and he's a real historian and had an incredible library in England in the 1500s. He thought, sincerely, from what I'm told, that King Arthur was his ancestor. And the big culminating story was that Arthur might have come to the Newport Tower site and opened a Stargate portal. This is where everything led. This is just the story. But the point is that Arthur is intimately woven into all of this. The Newport story, the Avalon at the bus station, Avalon on the car that I see that has the 888 after I've been told to investigate 888, and I parked behind a car that has 888 in the back that's an Avalon, and much, 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 much more. In a journey that goes from the Newport Tower to the Glastonbury Tor to the cave at Qumran near the Dead Sea Scrolls. This incredible journey. So now he's telling me he's met a time traveler and he's working with him. He says, yeah, but this guy's so hard to get a photo of. I've only been able to ever get one photo of him. So he shows me this photo of this guy. Now, think about this for a second. This guy's photo, he'll never allow himself to have his photo taken anywhere else or at any other time. He's only allowed it to be taken once. And where he's taken it, he's standing in front of the Avalon apartment building so that what you see in the background is Avalon. Of all the places in the world that he could be standing, there's no natural reason for him to be there. We have no natural connection with that. It's just the place I'd already made this connection with in my mind. And when I told someone about that, they said, oh yeah, he's trying to send you a message. The most important place in my spiritual journey physically is the upper room in Jerusalem. It's where Judas's final teaching occurred. It's where massive transformations have taken on pretty much every pilgrimage to Israel. And it's where the portal was opened, joining as the initial incursion point between heaven and earth in 2011. The culmination of my spiritual service, really, or one of the most important parts of it in this incarnation. And the lineage's incarnation, and so on. I honestly believe these things. So I'm at the upper room, and I'm still wondering what's up with Arthur. Like, why is he so important? And I'm starting to suspect there's a time travel element to all this, and that Arthur's involved, but I can't tell you what it is or how. That's just what starts feeling like the clues are leading me to. The interesting thing about the entire journeys to Israel, everything starts when JM, the channel of the Way of Mastery, goes to Israel. Prior to taking a group, he was going with a friend. Puts his hand on the wall in the upper room and is immediately flashed back in time to right after the crucifixion in the upper room where the Last Supper had been, but now the disciples are gathered in fear and terror and grief. And he's back there. And that trauma, which is a personal soul memory for him, brings up everything that leads to the healing of many beings going back to Israel, bringing the trauma up from the lifetime that they lived and walked with Jeshua, so that they can finally be healed. And that goes all the way from John the Beloved, JM, all the way through many, many other beings through 8 pilgrimages, and finally to Judas himself. So, okay, so all this has happened. I'm on the pilgrimage, the 8th pilgrimage and the final one. And I've been to the upper room many times, including seeing this amazing teaching of Judas, which is essentially undoing the separation itself. I've shared that in another video. So I go back one more time, and I think, Jeshua, is there anything else you want me to know? And this is in 2019. I know this is such a sacred and important place. It may be the last time I'm ever here. I realize that's a possibility. And is there something else you want me to know? And the proof of what I'm about to say was given by, I told this to a friend in the pathway, and they actually had a photo of what I'm about to tell you, and they didn't believe it was in the photo until they saw it for themselves. So I go and I stand in the middle of the room where I feel this column of light is coming in, joining heaven and earth. And I spin around in it with my eyes closed. And I say, whatever my eyes are looking at when I open my eyes is what I'm supposed to be seeing that I haven't seen. So I spin around, open my eyes, and I see something, despite all the times I've been in that room, and despite the quality and the unusualness of what this is, I'd never seen. I assume it had been there before. I spin and I open my eyes to a little shelf in the corner of the room. And on that little shelf is a stone, this big. And in that stone is a sword. Just like Arthur. Sword in the stone. And it was even meant to symbolize the connection between that church and a church in 2 places, including one in England. So Arthur's even in that sacred place. His evidence is being presented to be my Jeshua. Time travel. Avalon. What does Arthur have to do with all this? Why is he so prominent in this story, the undoing of the entire dream? I don't know. Thank you for listening to all of these sharings, and God bless you.